Okay, that's exciting to know. You sounded very positive about the outcome of your interview. So before you continue, just so I can allow you to catch your breath, I'm going to ask, not necessarily ask, but I'm going to speak to situational tasks because they are common tasks that come up in recruitment. Like you said, to see how people often handle and thrive in situations. It can be used to assess soft skills. It can also be used in behavioral assessment. And I think one of the things I have heard repeatedly is the STAR technique, STAR, where S stands for the situation in itself, T stands for the task, A is the action that the person took, and R is the result. So if you're speaking about or trying to answer a situation based question and you're not, emphasizing the action that you took and the result, maybe both quantitatively and qualitatively, then chances are you're not answering that question well. And I think something I have also learned repeatedly is the need to project your voice when you're speaking, especially for people that are shy or have the volume of their voices are automatically reduced. So practicing before the interview means if I'm speaking to two people, then I try to project my voice like I'm speaking to four people. If I'm speaking to five people, I try to project my voice like I'm speaking to 10 people in a way that I'm not shouting, but yet in having that audience physically present, they can hear me. So yeah, how was the entire process when you came out? What was it leaving the venue?
Okay, after I was handed over the bottle of water, the HCM personnel began to ask me as we came out of the room, how was it? How are you? How do you feel? Are you okay? So really, I was just calm, cool. I felt excited also. So I just said it, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But there was a sense of confidence about the performance I just put in. So that's very important to know, have a sense of how did I do? That's how did I perform in the room before you even hear people telling you their own evaluation of
Experiences, yeah.
yourself or even what they saw.
Mhm.
So it's very important. So I was told that I would be guided to go downstairs. So there was another personnel also working with the HCM, but this person stays outside the room to help guide people who are done to leave. So I was told to, initially we signed in on a form.
Okay.
So I was told to also sign out on that form with this HCM personnel that was in the interview panel room with me.
Mhm.
So after I'd signed with on that form, I was then guided by these other personnel into the lift. So they told me that they would guide me to where I should actually go to. So while I got into the lift, there was another young lady that came from another section entirely. It was not in my panel room because you had panel rooms littered
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So she came and we just had a very short exchange. Oh, how did it go for you? It went well, it went fine, I'm okay. So the lift brought us to the garage downstairs. So when we got downstairs, they just told us we should just walk straight and we'll see where other people are and
Okay.
would have a sense of what's to go on. But before then, they had already guided us that there are still other things that we needed to do
After the interview.
after the interview
Okay.
session. So when I got there, I saw another desk with NNPC Limited staffs seated, and I saw the candidates that come in also on one small line like that. So they would ask for your slip. That's the
That you print
interview
out.
invite you
Yeah.
came in with.
Mm-hmm.
So they ask you for that. So at a point in time, they will call and say, whose name is this or who has this slip? So you come. So they'll point on a table and on that table there's this paper with names and people are signing. So they then point to you and tell you to write some number, and I'll tell you to sign. So the number is something they will tell you. And they might
Okay.
give you a small mini envelope. So
Oh, mini envelope. Mini envelope. That's nice.
so it was later on we of course we had been told but not seen it. So it
Mm.
was later on I opened it and it was a prepaid ATM card. So they had loaded 100,000, at least in my experience, and they tagged it transportation allowance
Yeah.
so that it could help people for the commitments certain
Yeah.
people had to make
Yeah.
to be able to get to the venue. And I think also just a way to encourage and to make everyone feel as if it was worth their time somehow.
Yeah.
So you leave having a sense of, okay, I did something. I did something.
Yeah.
I received something. So that was it. I stepped out of the premises and then all the, even though there was any residual tension, anything hanging on your shoulder, all of them just go packing, everything just rose and you just, wow, I just finished this. I just completed this
I know,
process.
right? You did that. Yeah, you did that. So that's exciting. I like the idea of having a fixed amount to appreciate people for transportation, because having people coming from everywhere across the 36 states of the country to Abuja is, it's an extreme sport. For some people it was their first time having to come to Abuja. The transportation prices even for road is not the most favorable, was not even the most favorable then, and then having to cover for feeding, um logistics of where you're going to sleep, local transportation. I'm sure it was a lot. And then you're asking yourself, is this a good investment? You know, is it worth my time traveling from this place to this place? Especially when you didn't even know whether you were going to get reimbursed or not. Overall, I think it was a good experience. The only parts or major places in this particular phase I think I would have appreciated or would be great to see more improvement is in communicating, especially for people that had like tutu and diplomas and had to come in without getting prior information about the transcript or having an MSc. That was definitely quite a lot to handle. So we're getting to the end, and I'm going to ask you the last question. So I understand after this phase, it took a couple of weeks because the recruitment process, this interview process went on for weeks, right?
Oh, yes.
People coming in different days. I think the statistics is a little about 14,000 people making it to this phase. So that's crazy. From 40,000 people doing CBT to 14,000 people having to travel in and out to a particular location. And compared to 2020, where it was done regionally, this year it was done in a central location. So, what other observations and tips would you share with us? Observations from your experience, and then maybe tips for anybody hoping to apply later on or apply for any GT generally.
So I believe one thing that's quite key is the level of preparation and confidence. I can't overemphasize it because there were some situations where you see even some persons, they step into the room and it's almost like before you know it, they're out of the room and it feels as if they ran out of the room. That is, they couldn't wait to
Yeah.
be done with the interview session. And you could also see sometimes the men on their face that they know they didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
best interactions inside the room. You also see that level of jittering and panic that everybody is just, not everybody, but certain persons will try to carry upon themselves and even rub it upon
Other
other
people, yeah.
people. So you really need to have a sense of, I'm ready for this, I'm serious about this, and just hold on to the fact that you have made necessary preparations and you're going to give it your best shot. Another thing that really popped to me few moments before I stepped into my panel room was I thought about those numbers. I didn't have the exact numbers,
Yeah.
but I had an idea that the numbers were huge.
Yeah.
Of the number of persons who had applied, number of persons who had made it past the CBT, people who were coming to do the interviews. So I was thinking to myself and I said something around the lines of I see if I need to become a celebrity or if I need to be told you overdid it, like that's what I just have to
Yeah,
do.
you're ready to go beyond your comfort zone.
Exactly, just
But not
drop.
but not in a weird way.
Of course, not in a weird way. Not in a weird way. Just drop everything I know I came in with, especially when it's demanded of me. Like just demand, just give your very best. And interestingly, a few times I saw that play out because one, you spoke earlier about voice projection.
Yeah.
I came into the room and you have that tension that wants
The
to
first time you open your mouth, you're like, what's that voice? Is it my voice? It's like, what's in my shirt?
good, exactly. It's almost as if something wants to choke your voice, and the moment you raise up your voice, but not like,
Yeah,
yay,
you're not shouting.
but you
Project.
actually say, hello, good morning. And there's also a sense of excitement that you try to
Yes.
convey in your voice, not like
Nervousness.
it's exactly. So once you do that, I in my own personal experience, I see you finding it easy to express yourself. So you also don't want to do this dead memorization where you are saying
Cram and pop.
exactly crown and paw. You don't want to do that because
Maybe
exactly you would mess things up for yourself. So spend a lot of time with the information that you need to know and feel comfortable about it, such that even when you practice with friends or anyone at all, those things flow. It's not as if you are telling the panel, hey, wait, let me open my wardrobe and
and
check
look for it.
and look for it. So that's important. And also the way you have to comport yourself throughout the entire process. There were some little misbehaviors from young people where we had just been cleared of accreditation and someone had misplaced their wallet, their ATM card, their I think there was even someone his tie. I if I'm not mistaken, there was one person his birth certificate. So it's like, how do you guys do that in how many minutes? So of
They
course,
felt at home, Calm them.
so it's important. And also, you don't want to sleep or doze off in weird places and in weird ways. It's could be tiring sometimes
Sure.
for the amount of time you spend waiting. So one of the things I suggest is if you have that privilege of time, make use of it to your advantage and use it to focus on making yourself comfortable. I went to the restroom maybe 4 or 5 times. And I tell you, many a times it wasn't like I literally needed to get to the restroom.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a particular occasion I just went to the restroom to dance. I'm not even joking. I just I just I just danced and made myself feel because if you dance, you find yourself
Yeah.
expressing yourself, or if you sing in a public
Mm-hmm.
environment, but not in an
Not as a
intrusive,
nuisance,
not
basically.
as a nuisance. So you find yourself comfortable, and once in a while, one or two persons sit beside you, and you can say, "Hey, how you doing? How was your trip? How did you make it?" So those little things help you to begin to ease off the tension, and you feel like there's nothing too special about this place that should make me
Self-sabotage.
exactly self-sabotage myself, just annihilate all I've prepared for. So there are even one or two persons I met,
That's
and those are
nice.
people that I had met before. And there were persons that were even new persons.
Oh, that's cool.
Like the person that sat beside me in the amphitheater, that was actually orchestrated by one of the coordinators. And they just, hey, turn around, make new friends, just talk to
Yeah,
someone.
yeah, it comes in handy. It comes in handy, especially when you get in. On your first day, you're going to be like, God, just one familiar face. Even if they're a witch later, but let me just see them today. You just want one familiar face. So I totally get that.
So that was really a good one, and those are a few things. But I believe most importantly, in my own personal experience, is the place of God and having faith that there are certain things that would be beyond your control. And as you make some commitments to diligence and preparation, but you also put faith in God through action, through prayer, through that belief that the one who made you is not the one who doesn't have plans for you.
Yeah.
So those are certain things that one shouldn't feel are not necessary when you want to carry out activities like that. Because I could also spend some time to talk about the testimony of how that eventually played out in helping me through the process I've gone through. So I think those are a few things for young people and even from myself about my own experience that would be helpful and will come in handy.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been exciting, insightful, amazing, phenomenal, and I'm happy that after so much deliberation, procrastination, we finally got to do all three parts of this series. So I understood that the interview process was not like a normal interview process. And then I'm going to clarify what I mean. In a normal interview process, you can very easily shape the course of the conversation by the way you introduce yourself.
Yes.
Why that was a likelihood in this particular recruitment, it was not exactly up to 50% in terms of flexibility, because they were more focused about recruitment based on course of study. So for someone that maybe studied a BSc in something, right? For instance, you have a BSc in something and then your questions were linked to that. There was someone else, or there may be other people that have a BSc in something and MSc in something else, or someone did a BSc in something and they don't necessarily want to work in line with what they did as their BSc because of the, of course, structure of the panel and other things we've said in previous sections of this part three. Um, I think it's important to still do the preliminary research and revise what you have studied and communicate the experiences that you have in the other sector or the other field that you're interested in. So when they're writing the remarks and grading you, and the opportunity comes up maybe within the course of the program, or within the course of the structure of the program, or after the program, it becomes easier for the organization to say, based on this report by HCM or the recruiter, I think this person will be a better fit to start their career or to grow in their career journey in this part or in this department or in this subsidiary, as opposed to you getting placed in a department and you're unsatisfied and depressed. So I think that's also something to note. Then, because of the nature of the importance and relevance of course of study, I also realized that during the interview phases, people began to form clusters of groups for courses. So they're like, yeah, NNPC, people that studied economics, is there a group chat? Where's the group chat? People that studied computer science, is there a group chat? Where is the group chat? So I think that also helped in a way in providing an avenue for better preparation with like minds, of course. And like he mentioned, meeting people at different stages. When I was deliberating about going to Niger State, there was this conversation of, if you go to Niger State, it's not a bad investment. What if you go and meet your husband there, or one thing or the other? Well, I clearly didn't meet him there, but 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 I met other people And I think it was an interesting and beautiful experience, right? At least if for anything, on the bright side, I get to share it with you and you can learn from the experience and become a better person. I understand they also sent information about feedback to get perspectives.
Oh yes, they did. They did.
So I think another thing I'm also going to mention is something that may be treated as very controversial, which is the number of people from diaspora that actually came in to write.
Mm.
So I remember this particular story of someone's parents telling their child, the child was supposed to do their final exam for their MSc, and their parents is like, oh, it's clashing with the CBT, just come and do the CBT.
Whoa.
Yeah, and they came and did the CBT, and then they came also for the interview. So a lot of people came back for the CBT and for the interview. So it also gives you a context to the preview of competition, right? You may have finished with the first class, best in your department. That's amazing. But then someone else having an MSc and also finishing with a first class in the same grade has sort of like an advantage when compared to what you offer, which is also an amazing advantage. And someone having more experience, but then applying for a GT as a start also has more experience. I mean, I'm not in HR, I don't work for the organization. I don't exactly know how they um factor those things in. But I think during the interview, it's important to sell yourself, not in a way that you undersell or oversell, but sell well, which is part of the things I spoke about earlier. And life always has its own advantages and disadvantages. For some people, your strengths were strongest in the CBT when you're not talking to anybody. You probably had 100 over 100. I mean, chances about that are not exactly 100% either, or maybe you had a 99 or 98%, and then during the interview you're not necessarily the most vocal. So as much as you want to use your strength and play with the privileges that you have as an individual, there's also the important factor to try to grow and improve in other areas. So before I read the mail and then we go into next stages, I got this information that CBT generally, for people that qualified to the interview, CBT had about 20% of the score. Your class of degree was about 10%. So it does matter whether you finish with a first class or a 2-1. The knowledge on the company was also 10%, and you spoke extensively on that. HSC was 10%. I remember people giving feedback and saying, oh, they're going to leave one live wire, and then when you enter inside the room, that's the health hazard, except they change the health hazard tomorrow. I mean, it's funny, but eventually there's the need to do a little bit of research on health hazard. For instance, fire drill, muster point, triangle of fire, recycling bins and dustbins, sprinklers, just basic HSE knowledge. There's a need to invest a little bit on that when you're considering recruitment in any good organization, regardless of whether it's in the energy sector or not, right? Safety is important. Presentation, 20%. And presentation, I'm guessing, has to do with dressing, elegance, body language, and gestures, right? So as much as it's important to gesticulate, you don't want to say, I'm saying three things, I'm saying three things, I'm saying one thing, I'm saying one thing, I'm saying one thing. So you want to be able to gesticulate properly when you're, so these are the things you need to prepare for. And I think just for me as an individual, I've noticed when I'm maybe a little bit tensed or in a place and I start speaking, chances are I may not start gesticulating immediately. By the time I realize, my brain is going to be like, that's awkward, that's creepy. How am I supposed to move my hand from down to up to start gesticulating? Don't think about it and just go for it in a good way, right? Dressing also had a separate mark of 10%. HR, I'm guessing that has to do with behavioral assessment, also had about 20%. So the cutoff mark in total then would be 70% and 60% for underrepresented states. I'm not sure of exactly how many they took this year, but I doubt it's up to 2,000. I mean, eventually we'll find out the exact amount. I doubt it's up to 2,000. Okay, so it didn't take so long, maybe about between 2 to 3 weeks after the interview process. there was information sent out. And I know some people were speculating, when is the feedback going to come out? When is the feedback going to come out? And then somebody said, "Oh, we'll see it by 12 a.m." Because for this recruitment process, NNPC had a habit of sending emails while men slept. I don't know, they are doing rapture rehearsal or something. So for people that were selected, they got this mail which says, "Dear full name and then applicant's number. We are pleased to offer you the position of graduate trainee, excuse me, on grade level XYZ, effective XYZ date. The detailed terms and conditions of your employment as well as your contract will be provided subsequently. In deciding to employ you, NNPC has relied on the accuracy and truthfulness of the information provided by you in your application, CV, and during the hiring process. Please be aware that if it is discovered that any of the qualifications, credentials, and information provided by you is false, misleading, or incompetent, NNPC reserves the right to: 1. Disqualify you from the employment process if the discovery is made before the employment reporting date. 2. Terminate your employment immediately if the discovery is made after your employment has commenced. We look forward to you joining an NNPC Limited family. Congratulations. Best regards. So yeah, that's exciting. Let me ask you. So did you get him?
Yes, I did.
Woohoo! So how did that feel?
Oh my, it's even when I had not gotten the message, but I knew that they were about to begin to send those messages. There was some thoughts like, could you have made every perfect step? Could you have gotten it right every step of the way? And I think one of the confidence I had was God had been faithful and also helped me to make it past all the phases, from filling the form to even say I want to apply. Like that's a phase many people don't get past.
I almost didn't pass it. I almost did it.
So you do that and you get called for the CBT. Because even the people that got called for CBT, they say there was about 3, 4 criterias that were used.
Yes, to
screen the applicants before they could even call people for CBT. So to not be cut off in the midst of all that screening, the CBT, even though you have to make adjustments to your plans, transportation, and you get to the interview, you make it successfully there, and you see people like, if you're writing CBT, you can just feel like, I was there.
It's not by face.
And maybe we're just 200 in my center. But when you now come to the central location, and of course, some people don't make it from the CBT to the interview, but you now see even the number of people that made it to the interview. I mean,
on your day.
On my day. Like, even by 10 o'clock, people were coming in. Like the space we had in that place, except they were clearing people as fast as they were clearing people, you would still have people coming in. And you begin to ask yourself questions like, could I be one of
the ones? Am I special enough?
So I believe in the end, the question is, who are you not to be the one that they choose?
I know.
So
I know.
I'm quite glad to have been favored in this way, but I also thank God that there was the grace and the ability to make necessary preparations, necessary commitments. Let me speak a bit to people who have belief systems, especially Christians, and there's a sentiment where God go do am, God go do am. So of course God does things, but we also need to show that we believe that He will do it
by doing our part.
exactly that's by making the necessary sacrifices, commitments that we need to make. So I look forward to my time at NNPC Limited, and thank you for having me.
Wow, wow. We're not done. We're not done having you. I mean, I think it feels like when you hear different things like conspiracy theory in quotes, Nigeria gets cabal is one of the cabal. Then it's like I'm inside the cabal.
Oh my.
We look forward to receiving our fair share of the national cake and national money. Because it took a lot of ancestral investment in terms of tax by our ancestors to get the company to become a private entity, and we wish you and every other amazing person the best on their journey. So final question. Yeah, final.
Okay.
I know you've gone through a couple of GT experiences. There's Reckitt, there's KPMG, there's First Bank, there's Sahara, and all of them. So, just very briefly, what would you say has been a key similarity, or maybe something that makes this process unique that maybe people can learn from just generally in terms of graduate traineeships?
Okay. So the processes are really not too far different, though there were certain peculiarities for each experience or organization. And you have cases where you could do some kind of outdoor activity, and that would actually still be a means by which you are assessed. So you could play games with, other candidates, and maybe go on a trip. Those are some things that some organizations do. They could also interview you sometimes by call, by video, and many other things. But when it comes to NNPC Limited, I think one of the key things that stands out for me in comparison to many of the other organizations was the transparency of the process.
Yeah.
It was, when you try to make some fun earlier about the company and the Nigerian government that has hands within the company, to think that that is a possibility
in our life and you experienced it.
Oh
I give it
no,
to
oh
them.
no, oh no.
I give it to
That
them.
that was no, I felt excited and glad.
It gives you a level of faith in Nigeria. You're like, I'm not sure of the day, but one day we wake up and decide to do, we're gonna do
we have a dream.
Yeah. It does.
So that was it. It's great seeing that happen with the number of persons that were involved.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure the level of confidentiality at different level had to be top tier. The clearance level, the communication. Because when you look at all the QR code, all the codes, all the process, for you to squeeze somebody's name, even in one process, you have to be a spiritual somebody. It's not something you can manipulate in the physical. So, I give that to them. I give that to them.
And much more than that, it's one thing to put in technical processes and systems to ensure that your goals are achieved. But when you also have the people, the staff, the personnel, even the ones that you contract to, you see almost everyone is as if they are speaking the same language.
It was almost like every time you had to go through a part of the process, you were not in Nigeria.
No, oh my.
I don't know how to explain. I mean, it happened in Nigeria, but that's how it felt.
Oh yeah, you could feel that this is not what I'm used to.
Yeah.
In fact, that's part of what makes some persons lose their composure, because you come in as a Nigerian, say, hey, I rugged, I get ready, and then you now see a sense of professionalism, and not just professionalism, but professionalism at its peak from the staff, from the people around them, and even from some of the candidates that are coming in. and you just know, like, man, this is a game, and I just have to bring in my best.
Yeah.
The warmth with which they received us, the way they tried to make us feel as if they had known us all this while, as if every time people wrote CBT, like they literally met those persons in person. And take, for instance, the interview panels. Let's say my panel, for instance, could have to handle about, let's say, 20 persons a day for close to about 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And I came into the room and I could see a sense of vibrancy.
Yes,
and I was,
you're not trying to pour your tiredness on the next
exactly,
participant. That's crazy.
they gave you the opportunity to have a chance.
Yes, it's like we've not interviewed anybody before.
Exactly, it's almost as if they just give you that impression.
We listen, we don't judge. At its finest, not what we are doing on Nigerian Twitter. So beautiful.
So no, I'm glad. I'm glad and I'm happy.
All right, so thank you very much. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. A question I get asked a lot is around past questions when it comes to graduate training. So while I would say it's important to understand what the process is like and the kind of topics or things you will be graded on, I'm not going to advise sole recommendation on past questions. You know that thing where you la cram la pour, even when they change option A to option D, you cannot recognize it. We leave those things in nursery school, okay? Yeah. And if you can't find past question available for the organization, at least just try to get information on what the process is like and prepare with the available resources and demo materials that are available on the internet today. You can also get the GT webinar replay. It's a session I did with another acquaintance some months ago, and in the webinar replay we spoke in-depthly about certain things like what exactly is this graduate trainee pandemic, how do I know the one that is entry level, how do I know the one that's managerial, what are interview processes, how do I write a professional CV by myself without having to pay someone to write it, what do I need to write in a cover letter, what are key assessments that happen during recruitment processes, how can I prepare for them, and what are the recruiters looking for in those processes, am I myself employable, how do I in-depthly maneuver my interview to get posted to where I want to get posted to, I mean in the right ways of course, how do I make the most of graduate training, just a little bit of office politics 101, especially for people that have not really worked in a 9 to 5, and what do I need to do in this age to ensure that I get retained after my graduate training program. If you're interested in sharing your experience for any other graduate training program that is currently not on my page, please feel free to reach out and hopefully we can collaborate and do a video of you sharing your experience, whether you got selected through all the stages or not. And I wish everybody the best with their recruitment exercises, and I hope that this video was very helpful, educative, fun, and inspirational. Bye bye, and see you in the next series.